take a look at what's grabbing headlines around the world. Papers are focusing on the top story here in France, the results of the final round of the Conservative primary, and François Fillon's landslide victory.
That's right, his crushing victory, according to a lot of papers around the world. It's really a top story around the world. Let's start with L'Orient Le Jour, the Lebanese paper, saying that François Fillon crushed round two. And you can see this photo here, François Fillon with his hand on his heart. This is really the photo that's coming out of last night's round two. Similar photo on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, where they talk about a former dark horse that surges to the front of the French presidential race, because not only did he win the primary, but now a lot of polls suggest that he could win the presidency next spring. Now, let's take a look at the front page of Le Soir as well, the Belgian paper, saying that he wins an overwhelming majority, about 2/3 of the vote. And now, of course, he has his eye on the next thing, the Élysée Palace.
Also staying with Le Soir, the Belgian paper says it's not just a victory for Fillon, but basically for the right in general.
That's right. In their editorial, they talk about how the right has 1 point and the left has 0 points when it comes to primaries, essentially, because what we're really seeing in French politics is a shift towards the right. And what is the left doing? That's what Le Soir wants to know. Well, it's pretty grim, according to Le Soir. It says, to quote, just a few months before the election, it seems like the left is driving into the wall with their foot on the accelerator. There is a glimmer of hope in Le Soir's editorial, saying that perhaps François Fillon's divisive character could rally the left together, but who would be the captain of this ship? Le Soir points out that, just a few months before the election, there's no clear leader on the left.
Yeah, they're running out of time. Well, many analysts are looking ahead and predicting a runoff between François Fillon and far-right leader Marine Le Pen in round two of the presidential election next spring.
That's right, particularly in the British press, it must be said. Let's take a look, first of all, at the Telegraph. You can see they're saying that, with the left in the doldrums, François Fillon is set for a face-off with Marine Le Pen. The Guardian has a really interesting analysis piece today saying that Fillon's victory actually creates a strategy problem for Marine Le Pen. She actually didn't really see this coming. She expected either Alain Juppé or Nicolas Sarkozy to win. And the thing is, the Front National has reason to fear Fillon, according to The Guardian, because, well, they overlap on some things. For instance, François Fillon has a traditional conservative line when it comes to the family. He talks a lot about France's Christian roots, the importance of identity, patriotism, excuse me. He talks about the fear of Islam, as well as he's very pro-Putin when it comes to foreign policy. Well, all these are things that he sees eye to eye with the Front National. And so perhaps he could actually be a real challenge to Marine Le Pen, because most analysts have been saying up until yesterday that Marine Le Pen was definitely going to make it to round two. But now that François Fillon is in the running, maybe that won't be the case.
He's been stealing her thunder a little bit. All right, Fillon's victory isn't the only top story today. Papers around the world are focusing on the death of former Cuban President Fidel Castro.
That's right. As you can imagine, Cuban papers are focusing on the passing of their dear leader. You can see this is the homepage of Granma, which is the official Cuban paper, focusing on how the country as a whole is mourning the passing of El Comandante en Jefe, the commander-in-chief. You can see they're talking about how unity is the best tribute that they could pay to Fidel Castro. Very lengthy, glowing obituary you can see here in Granma about Fidel Castro Ruz. And at the end it says, you can't summarize his life in just a few paragraphs, and it calls on future generations to continue his work of art when it comes to Cuba.
I just can't believe their newspaper is called Grandma. Anyway, news of his passing is receiving mixed reviews and mixed reactions. Some papers are paying glowing tributes.
Absolutely. It's really interesting to see how different papers are reacting to his death. Let's start with China Daily. Of course, China, a big ally of Cuba. You can see how it says that China has lost a great friend. Now, if you look at the communist paper here in France as well, glowing words as well for Fidel Castro. So this is L'Humanité's front page today. Hasta siempre, Fidel, calling him by his first name. Now, other papers are focusing on the complexity of Fidel Castro. If we take a look here at Libération, so Libération is the left-wing paper here in France, once upon a time there was a revolution. They focus on, Fidel Castro, he was a freedom fighter, but he was also a dictator. He was a legend, though. That's what's clear according to Libération. And The Guardian has an interesting editorial today as well. They're talking about a man of history, and they call on people to situate him in the political and intellectual setting of the 20th century in Latin America, anti-colonialism, etc., and not to see him through the eyes of the 21st century.
But other articles, less forgiving, other papers calling him a dictator.
That's right. Let's take a look at the editorial of the Wall Street Journal today, saying no progressive nostalgia should disguise his murderous and tragic track record. The Guardian, if we go back to that paper, there's another interesting analysis piece that says, whatever you say, he was a dictator. You can talk about healthcare, you can talk about education, but he was a dictator. What's interesting is the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, he's drawn some criticism as well, because he issued a statement that was a little controversial. It seemed like he was praising Castro, larger-than-life leader, etc. The Globe and Mail says maybe this was actually a snub to the United States, and particularly to Donald Trump. The United States and Canada have always had different policies when it came to Cuba, so perhaps this is a continuation of that. It did lead to a lot of mockery online, I must say. Let's just end with a tweet. Hashtag Trudeau eulogies was kind of viral, and there was one I picked out which cracked me up. While Darth Vader did have his detractors, he did create millions of jobs with his innovative infrastructure projects.
That's great. Thank you, Flo Vimeno, avec the International Press.